You want some bad news, Michael?
No.
What are you asking me?
You're the guru of the gray matter. I figured if anybody had it, you'd have the answer.
I can't give you any direction.
I think I'm going to have to change this channel. I'm sorry.
You're completely wrong.
I refuse to be wrong on 2 calls in a row.
Tell me I'm spot on or tell me I'm crazy as all get out.
I have no idea.
I have a 6-month-old, so we'll be raising him according to Dr. Ray.
Talk about being a winner.
So, you want my question?
You ain't making any sense.
You're absolutely right. I just needed confirmation.
So what are you going to do about it, Dawn?
I'm calling you.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Very nice to join you on this E-Person Monday. I'm looking at the stack of e-persons that I've printed out because I didn't want to scroll on the phone because so many spam calls come in. As soon as they do, I lose the spot where I am on the phone. So we will get to your e-persons. But I've got some here that I can just basically use as an opening monologue. Boy, there's a bunch here. As an author, do you find Pascal's saying, quote, the last thing one knows when writing a book is what to put first? Is that true for you? Yes, it is. And it's more true for chapters. My son does a lot of social media, and he, like it or not, basically, if you put up something on social media designed to help someone or to educate, because that's what I have him do with mine. Mine are all just some pieces of life nuggets from the TV show or something that I'll do in a speech, and they'll clip it and they'll put it there. The key is, what is that first line? Believe it or not, what is that first line? That gets... Unfortunately, the people have very short attention spans. It gets them past that first 2 or 3 seconds, and then they watch the rest of it. So, indeed, it is important to know what to put first. Now, one of the things my son does, he says, Dad, just riff. In other words, something kind of like an opening monologue here on the radio show. But when you're doing it for social media, you just got to be visual most of the time. He says, riff. Okay. Then he takes, and this used to be done. This is what a science this has become. If you want to expand your help to people, if that is what social media is for, and all of our networks and all of our independent stations, that's what they want. They want to reach people who would not necessarily listen to radio. They're the younger crowd, and you want to reach them. And then maybe bring them closer to the church, closer to Christ, and perhaps start listening regularly to Catholic media. So you grab their attention. He'll say, Dad, I've developed a program that essentially says this particular word or this particular sentence is an attention grabber. And we're going to put it at the front of your 45-second clip. And that's what you do. So Pascal's saying here, the last thing one knows when writing a book is what to put first, can be extrapolated. What to put first in a social media post. What to put first in a chapter. That's the hardest part for me when I'm working on a book and it's in chapter form. Some of my books are Q&A form. The grandparent book is. The Discipline That Lasts a Lifetime book is. The Standing Strong book is. The When Family Faith Under Fire book is. The Adoption book is. These are Q&As. These are the most common questions I get from people in that domain. But other ones are chapters. Thinking Like Jesus, Jesus the Master Psychologist, Simple Steps to a Stronger Marriage, Living Calm. What other ones do I have there that would be like that? What Catholics Really Believe. And I have to figure out how to start the chapter out in a grabby way. You see this with the great novelists, especially the ones who write these mystery novels. They grab you on the first page. right now. Because you're thinking, whoa, what is this all about? And then you move through the book. And for me, I will change that introductory paragraph a gazillion times until I decide, okay, now that's enough to keep somebody reading, or that's enough to pique their curiosity, or that's enough to start out with my point. I'll give you an example of a grabby title, but it needs to be fleshed out, and I did it on a most recent monologue on the program. I said, piety is not holiness. Now, that needs fleshed out because, of course, piety can be holiness. Piety can be a sign of holiness. Piety can help you become more holy, yes. But piety in and of itself, without charity, is not holiness. It's that simple. But the first line, piety is not holiness. There's going to be people that are going to go, what? That doesn't sound right. And then they're going to see further on. So yes, as an author, I find that it's the tough stuff. And the closing. If you'll notice, the better columnists, they've got a 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines at the end of their column that just summarize in a very pithy, punchy way what they just said. And it's a skill. It's a skill. Okay, see what else we got here real quick. This one's a little broader. I'm going to save this till after the break. It is becoming, this is the less difficult one. It has become harder to carry on a conversation without it being laced with many cuss words. Now, I'm assuming the person is not saying, I'm doing this. They're saying they're listening to this. Asking people to refrain from using this language has not worked. What do you suggest in handling this? Well, you don't stop the discussion if it's a healthy one. You don't stop the discussion if you're trying to get closer to somebody in a relationship because they fling around all what used to be totally taboo language, which now, sadly, is not, from everybody. And by the way, it's also, if you know anything about exorcisms and you've read any reports about exorcisms, the demons use that. They love that F word. That's their coin of the realm. Oh, my. And I comment often. We're using the language of demons. So what do? You stare, maybe. Just hope they get by it. I played a lot of softball. Softball players, their language. Let me put it to you this way. If a softball player were inside a restaurant or a bar and using their typical language, somebody would say, hey, watch it. Watch your language. There's truckers in here. Yeah. And so most of the guys I talk to, if I wanted to have any kind of ongoing conversation with them, I just had to kind of let that stuff slide by. And for me to correct them, in their view, wouldn't be relevant because they're not religious. And that's the cultural language. So what do? Well, I just don't use the language. And hopefully they'll notice, but my experience has been most of the time they don't. Somebody's not going to say, Ray, I've noticed your language is rather clean. Can you tell me what that is? Are you a follower of Jesus Christ? Oh, because I was wondering all about that. You may get somebody like that once every 26 years, but you still got to do it. Because you never know when that once every 26 years is going to happen. If you're Teresa Tomeo, it could have happened 4 times by now. Never mind. I'll do the math. All righty. When we come back, I'm going to dive into these little more detailed e-persons. I'm Dr. Ray, and I thank you so very much for joining me here on E-Person Monday.
Don't touch that dial. Dr. Ray will be back.
You still there, buddy?
I'm here, yeah.
All right.
You ready for me?
I am. I get questions that are usually shorter than e-person questions. I'll give you an example. I got this one. Dr. Ray, do you believe in birth trauma? When I was in graduate school, we had to go over all these various personality theories, and one of them was you had to go back and relive to counterbalance your birth trauma. And the birth trauma, making it simple, was that you went from a safe, warm, watery world out into the bright lights of Hollywood with a lot of noise, a lot of chaos, and that was traumatic. And it was traumatic in the sense that it buried deep inside your psyche because you weren't really aware of it. You had no memory of it, obviously. You're an infant. So it was something that was unconscious for years and years and years and years. And in fact, it played itself out as you got older and you had more struggles mentally and you had more struggles emotionally. Well, there's really not been a whole lot of research support for that. But however, from my own personal perspective, I started to lean toward birth trauma. I'll give you an example. When I was born, as I look back on it now, it was so emotionally rattling that I didn't talk for almost a year and a half. Yeah. And then, a little bit later in my development, when I had my second birthday, I realized that I had doubled my age in just 1 year. Doing the math, because I was an exceptionally mathematically oriented child, doing the math, I realized if that kept up, doubling my age every birthday, by the time I was 7, I would be 64. So yeah, I realize there's reasons there for the birth trauma to happen. Dr. Ray, I was abused sexually by my older sister as a child, and later by my father. I now find that I have an extremely, and extremely is in all caps, with the rest of the letters in standard punctuation and letter style. Extremely difficult time allowing my kids to play with each other in the other room or to show each other affection. Now, I'm guessing that these are younger children. These are probably toddlers, preschoolers, maybe 6 years old. Just be my guess. I want to know if this is okay behavior. Am I being strict about this? Or should I relax a bit? I've been called a helicopter parent, and I understand that that's probably true. I just don't want my kids hurt or hurting each other or to ever look back and say, Mom, let this happen to me. Okay, Mom. To answer your relax a bit question, here's a couple ways you could do this. For example, if they're really little, it's unlikely that they're going to have conscious-oriented sexual abuse, especially if you keep a close eye on what they've seen and what they've experienced via TV or anyplace else. Now, there's a certain amount of playing doctor that goes on with little kids, and it's usually curiosity. It isn't anything that has a stimulating sexual component to it. So I think you're safe in gradually, slowly extending the time before you go in and check on them. Instead of keeping one ear to the wall every minute, stretch it out 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. And you'll probably develop some comfort in seeing every time you check on them, they're doing something. They're coloring or even horsing around, but there's nothing in there that even remotely looks like they're misusing each other. Okay, that's one. If you say, I don't want my kids hurt or hurting each other, well, there is a way that you can separate that out a little bit. For example, if they're mistreating each other behaviorally, which is far more likely what little kids do to each other. They push or they yell or they kick or they knock over block towers, or they just do stuff that's a little kiddish. Okay, keep a closer eye on that because you may have to act on that. Much more likely you'll have to act on that than you would some kind of inappropriate sexual play. Now, this is what's driving you, Mom. Because you were so traumatized by all that. Your compensation for it is, I just have to keep an eye on my kids every 6 seconds. Because I know what it did to me, and I can't even remotely stand the thought that something like that would happen to my kids right under my nose. Okay, I got that. But because that's driving you, it's probably making you a very anxious parent. I think that's safe to say. I think if you called me in, you'd say, oh, yes, I'm a very anxious parent. I don't enjoy this. I'm really nervous. It just bothers me. I'm so scared. Right. And that anxiety, that lack of peace in your parenthood is probably causing a little bit more of a artificial, if you will, parenting experience than the chance that your kids, who most likely are growing up in a very loving, careful home, because if you are that sensitive, hypersensitive to something happening under your nose, then I'm sure that you've very carefully watched what assaults their senses at their young ages, so therefore they're innocent and naive. That's good. And that makes the chances of them conjuring up anything on their own that has sexual content, again, not just curiosity or playing doctor, or you show me mine, I'll show you yours, which is a lot of natural kid conduct. The likelihood of the inappropriate stuff happening is very low. It's very low. So spread out your checkup times. You'll be reassured as you find that they're just playing like little kids play. Dr. Ray, but what would happen if something like that could happen? Now, see, this is a what if. What ifs create anxiety. This is a what if. What if that would happen? And if I say, well, Mom, what's the odds of that happening? Well, I'll admit, Dr. Ray, it's low. But it could happen. Well, here's the problem. Anything could happen. The question is it likely to happen? No. Is it even improbable to happen? That's right. It's probably improbable. But it's possible. Again, anything is possible. And you can what if anything into creating anxiety for you. And that's what you're doing here. But what if they were to do this to each other? And what if I didn't notice it? And what if it kept going? Yes, those are all what ifs. And the one thing they'll do more than anything else, they'll distress your parenting, and they will make you a parent who probably isn't balanced. And you don't want that. Okay, let's see what else we got here. In many cases, Dr. Ray, adversity can help faith grow, as we see and hear with the persecuted Christians in the Middle East. Are we seeing in the United States, where we live more securely and comfortably, that faith wanes or does not grow as strong? Oh, of course. Of course. Now, I'm not saying, oh, this is good. Let's go back to be persecuted physically and every other way by the culture around us and our government. No, but it is very easy. I remember, this is funny, a Chinese missionary, this was back when this was a while back, and I'm not sure, I'm sure China has tightened up on any kinds of evangelical efforts. But one of the things that the missionary said is that as the Chinese people became more comfortable with their lifestyle, more opportunities, more hedonism. If that were to happen, and China's still basically a pretty poor country, but if that were to happen, the faith would grow weaker. Now, does that mean when a country persecutes Christians, it grows? If Christianity grows? No, actually, the opposite is true. If there is a concerted effort to persecute Christians, in many cases, it does either squash or totally eliminate the faith. We've got plenty of historical examples for that in Islam countries where Christianity once had a pretty good profile in the country, but now it's almost non-existent. Or in communist countries. Yeah, there are there are underground streaks, or there are growing movements, but in terms of it becoming something that is prominent in the culture, that generally doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So, yeah, I think the real danger in America is a very, very, somebody labeled it, comfy Christianity. They're very comfortable in our Christianity. And it's not bad to have these kinds of material blessings that we do in and of themselves. But they can become something that just simply waters down our faith, so that, as one evangelical friend put it, all this and heaven too. I'm Dr. Ray Grandy. The program The Doctor is in Monday through Friday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, co-production Ave Maria Radio Communications and EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network, some 500-plus stations, as well as Sirius Channel 130. And all the apps and ways to listen around the whole world, really. Dr. Ray here. Thank you so very much for joining me on this E-Person Monday, a variant of The Doctor is In, where we try. See, I always use we. That's not cool. I read somewhere in a author's manual of some type. So when you use we, it's kind of like a forced concession from the other person that you're going to be included in your thinking. Where I take on, address your e-persons. Hi, Dr. Ray. Our 30-year-old Catholic daughter has been dating a Jewish man for 4 years. Both are finishing up their postgraduate degrees, and I think a wedding might follow. It pains us to see our daughter's faith becoming less important to her over the years. Yeah, well, if she's in college, that's a real good chance that's going to happen. It happens more than 50% of the time. My wife and I also sense that he doesn't take his Jewish faith too seriously. But there are no signs that he is interested in converting to Catholicism. Well, that's probably because she's not all that interested in his converting to Catholicism. I suspect our daughter fears this. Now, what he means is what's coming, not what was. But we've never raised the subject, thinking that their relationship might dissolve before we risk creating hard feelings. In other words, he hasn't asked her about this and what it portends for their marriage and her walk in the faith if she continues to just simply get further and further from the faith she was raised in. We understand the church's position on mixed marriages. Well, I'm not exactly sure. There's a whole lot of, that's an umbrella. That's a big umbrella term. What kind of mixed marriages? Meaning a Catholic believer marrying a non-baptized person. Probably doesn't have anything to do with cross race or of two faiths, however weak they might be. My question is this. I always get nervous when questions are posed to me this way because it makes me the arbiter. Even our Lord, when he was asked, "Tell my brother to share the inheritance with me," and Jesus said, "Who am I to be the arbiter here?" And that was God saying that. Should I let my daughter know now that her mom and I would not be able to attend her wedding and reception? Why not? Where are they getting married? See, there's a lot more details here. Are they getting married in a Catholic church? And is the priest willing to concelebrate this? So I would follow his lead. Now, if they're getting married on a beach somewhere, or justice of the peace, or some kind of civil ceremony, then yeah, you have a decision to make. And that decision would be, we will not witness this because it is outside what she had professed as her faith. But you don't know how much she's totally abandoned her faith. I mean, if she's completely said, "I want no part of Catholicism. I do not consider myself a Catholic anymore. That was where I was raised. But from this point forward, I am simply either an agnostic or an atheist," then get some priestly guidance. Now, I've seen priests come down on both sides of this, where they'll say, you weigh how much damage it would do to the relationship. Would it irreparably fracture the relationship? And if so, how will you ever have a chance to witness the faith, to live the faith in front of this daughter and her fiancé? On the other hand, if your conscience tells you, "No, I can't do this. I cannot witness the fact that she was born and raised Catholic, she's baptized Catholic," and the question is, he's obviously not baptized if he was just born and raised Jewish. So she's marrying. That would be called, is it the Pauline privilege, if she would ever decide to pursue an annulment after a divorce. So if that's the case, again, get some good guidance from your priest. 'Cause I'm not going to step in and tell you here. But if your conscience tells you, "No, I can't do that," then yes, you'll tell her. But beware. You may dramatically underestimate. Oh, well, wait a minute. Okay, sorry. I just interrupted myself because I noticed the end of this, which generally I don't notice because I put this into the list, and then I forget why I put it in the list. And then when the end comes, I realize, oh, yeah. But let me stop here just for a second. Because you may dramatically underestimate the damage to the relationship. And if she cuts you off totally, wants no part of you, and it's this way for the next 22 years? I mean, you can't predict that. I've seen it happen. Okay, here's the last line. This is interesting. Her mom and I would not be able to attend her wedding and reception if she attempts to marry this man in a Catholic church or elsewhere. If she would want to be married in a Catholic church, you got to know what that says. From what you've described, I can't see how she would. Ask her, where are you planning to marry? What kind of ceremony? She says, I want to be married in a Catholic church. What about him? Oh, he'll go along. It doesn't mean anything to him. Well, then why do you want to get married in a Catholic church? Well, I was raised that way, and there's still part of it that's just important to me. I think you need to talk to your priest about this, where you're going to have the wedding. Because if he knows that's your attitude, I'm not so sure he would be willing to marry you. Well, I'll just find another priest. That's possible. I mean, there are other priests that might do that, but I think by and large that would really go against the Catholic view and teaching on marriage. So I think really what you got to do here first, Dad, is to get more details. See where her mind is. I mean, you sound like you've been looking from afar, kind of looking on this going, well, I think a marriage is coming, but I don't really know what this all means from her perspective and from his perspective and how they're viewing this and how are they going to get married where and what's it mean to them and how much damage will it cause. And if she says, if you don't come to my marriage, you're out of my life forever. You need to get some good guidance in these very, very ticklish situations. Start the music, maestro. This is Dr. Ray.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. A major legal victory Friday punishes the Justice Department for Biden-era actions against a pro-life advocate. Mark Houck had spent years of keeping vigil outside a Pennsylvania Planned Parenthood with 40 Days for Life, and eventually involved his son in that prayer and vigil after he stepped in to shield his son from harassment by an abortion escort. Federal agents raided Mark's home, exposing his children to the force of an armed raid. Threatened with a decade in prison, Mark went to court and was found innocent, but his children had been harmed. Pro-life advocates say the resolution is justice for the Houck family and affirms the right of pro-life Americans to peacefully act without fear of federal intimidation. This is Life News Radio.
Persecution around the world has manifested itself through the centuries, but it is worse today than ever before. Aid to the Church in Need and its donors have been there to help since 1947, never abandoning the Church or her most vulnerable children. Will you stand up for your faith and accompany our brothers and sisters on their spiritual journey? Visit churchinneed.org. churchinneed.org.
Pro-life legislators in Kansas have squashed their pro-abortion governor's vetoes. New legislation will give women more information before abortions and strengthen informed consent. Budget bills will protect pregnancy support centers from regulatory restriction and will fund those centers and keep similar funding away from abortion providers. And pro-life action in New York seeks to avoid funding for abortion training, and Tennessee voters are being asked to weigh in on a measure to fight abortion pill trafficking. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
Thank you so very much for joining me as I scroll through and see where I am at. Okay. Okay, this kind of relates. This is Dr. Ray here. The program Doctor is in the variant. Used to say version, but, now we have to go with variant. The variant of the program is ePerson Monday. To reiterate why I call it person, because to say email is rather patriarchal. It's gender insensitive. I want to be inclusive, so it's e-person. And I'm really going to get rid of person very soon, because in both syllables you have per son of the son, which in the etiology of that word is kind of a throwback. It's kind of a throwback. So in my never-ending quest to be linguistically sensitive, I'm going to have to just probably ditch the name of the variant totally. Hi, Dr. Ray. My 4-year-old daughter screams, and then she puts shrieks. No! I'm trying to convey what the letters say. It's a bunch of caps, a bunch of O's, and a whole bunch of exclamation points. And have you noticed? I think God used vowels for people to yell, whine, plead. Please. See, the P ends right away quick. That's a consonant. Okay, it's a plosive, I think the linguistic people call it. And the S, you can drag an S out for a long time, but not like a vowel. Ease. Or your teenage daughter when you're trying to walk out of the house. Dad. Okay, both D's at the end of those words, you can't. They don't continue, but the A does. The A does. So when a little kid goes, no, or stop, see the N or the ST or the P, those all relatively quickly leave the mouth and into the atmosphere, but the vowel doesn't. So she screams this at the top of her lungs when she doesn't get what she wants. Well, of course. Why would she scream it when she does get what she wants? And as a matter of fact, if you give her exactly what she wants, she'll stop right away quick. But you have to decide if giving her exactly what she wants is good for her in her learning that life isn't going to give you exactly what you want all the time. That's a good lesson, and it could start real young here. So we'll scrap that one. I'm writing because I don't know how to handle it. So I just told you how to handle it. Just give her what she wants. That'll stop it. You'll have peace. You don't want to do that, do you? I didn't think so. All right, let me come up with something else. When this happens, I either A, freeze up, or B, get angry, sometimes resorting to spanking. Well, now, Mom, those certainly aren't your only two responses. I think that reflects the fact that you're feeling pretty helpless to stop this. So you just kind of let her burn herself out with the nose, right? Hoping that she'll realize you may not be giving in. Of course, she can probably go on with a no a lot longer than you can not giving in. Eventually, you could just give in at some point in her 751st O vowel. Sometimes you get frustrated and you spank because you're frustrated. It's like, stop this, kid. Just stop this. Okay, the first thing we got to do to cut back on your frustration so you don't freeze and you don't smack. Not that I'm against a spank, but it sounds like you can't do this every time she says no because you said she does this every time she doesn't get her way. So what are you going to do, spank her 9 times a day? I don't think so. All right, that's it. First thing, let's not put more pathology upon the screaming than is probably there. This is a 4-year-old kid being defiant, and her particular way of being defiant is a scream. No. Now, she could get a little more sophisticated as she gets older. She could say things like, no, I'm not doing it. Okay? Add a few more sentences to it to punctuate her no. But this is just something that 4-year-olds do until they're taught out of it. Now, some will never do that because of their temperament. They're just not that in your face. Well, she is. All right. So you can deal with it. That's all. You don't look at it like, what's wrong with my kid? She's driving me nuts, and she's doing it just to make my parenting miserable. No, she's not. She's doing it because she wants what she wants or doesn't want you to do something she doesn't want, and she's letting you know it. In no uncertain, I was going to say no uncertain terms, but it sounds like it's just a no uncertain term. One word. She doesn't want to waste too many words. The screaming really bothers me. Okay, now here's where we're getting to the point as to why it bothers her. So up to this point, we're saying, okay, she hasn't really kind of accepted that little 4-year-olds do this. What is it about her 4-year-old doing this that really gets to her? And here it comes. I think it triggers me because my mom would do the same thing, screaming at the top of her lungs over anything and everything. Okay, there it was. There you have it. Future projection. If I don't get her somehow, some way to stop this right now, she's going to be like my mom. And I will be a total failure as a parent. So it isn't just a 4-year-old screaming no that has to be disciplined out of it. It's a 4-year-old that is going to become my mother. Oh. All right. That said, I'll add that she doesn't do this all the time. I'm assuming she's meaning the little preschooler, not her mother. Maybe once a day. And it happens a lot when she's overtired. Well, okay, so what? She's still doing it. And it doesn't matter that she's tired and doing it. You don't say, well, okay, you can be a brat. You're tired. That's okay. And by the way, I've seen a lot of parents do that. Oh, my gosh, I can't tell you how many parents will say when we're out in public or someplace, when back when we had young kids and their kids were kind of hanging around with our kids and their kids would put a meltdown. I don't know, about 50% of the time, yeah, she's just tired, I think. I think she's just tired. Well, yeah, huh? Okay, that makes it more likely it's going to happen for some kids, but it doesn't make it right. All right. I still don't know the best way to get this behavior to stop. Oh, sure you do, Mom. Easy, 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 easy. Peasy. You just decide what you're going to do about it. You tell her, when you scream no, here's what Mommy's going to do. You're going to sit on the steps. And if you don't sit on the steps, everything you ask for after that is going to be Mommy's no. Now, I may not scream no. I may not go, no. But it'll be no. Now, at that point, she will scream no when you say, no, you can't have your juice cup. You can have this cup. You don't get your juice cup. You didn't sit on the steps yet. No, your stuffed animal on your bed, I took it. Because you didn't sit on the steps yet. That's all. You're just telling her you gotta sit on the steps as the ticket. That's the ticket to getting your privileges. It's real simple. It's real simple. You just tell her, you can scream, honey. Go ahead. Scream. Here's what's going to happen. And you'll be better able to do that, Mom, if you don't panic and say, oh, no, is this genetic? Is she going to be like her grandma? Oh, I couldn't live with that. Not a second time around. No, that's way off. And by the way, she's growing up in a very different household than your mother grew up in. And she's got 20 years to probably get over this. And with your help, she will. But you can't panic and then be calm. Oh, isn't that brilliant? I'm a highly trained professional. I say these kinds of things. If you future project and think, if I don't get this under control now, who knows what it's going to lead to? Well, yeah, okay, I'll admit it's going to lead to a 5-year-old who screams no. Okay. All you got to do is just say, you scream like that, I'm going to sit you. Which leads me to ask the question. I better hurry up, I'm past break here. Leads me to ask the question. You mentioned you either freeze or you yell. Have you not yet thought about discipline? A consequence? You didn't mention any of that. You didn't say, I make her sit, but she still screams. You didn't say that. Maybe you do. You just neglected to say it. But I would think you would say it if it wasn't working, which leads me to think you didn't do it. See that chain of reasoning? I'm a highly trained professional. This is Dr. Ray. Thank you for joining me on ePerson Monday. Dr. Ray Guarendi here. Thank you for joining me on The Doctor Is In. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and I guess a YouTube channel too. My son manages all that. I don't know exactly what all goes on there. I'm my grandfather when it comes to that stuff. I mean, I'm confessing that for 2 years I wore my garage door opener so people would think I had a pager. Real quick question. Clinically speaking, are worry and anxiety the same thing? No. Anxiety is the much broader term. Anxiety covers a whole range of different types of anxiousness, whether they could be phobias, fears, social anxiety, general anxiety, panic attacks, obsessive-compulsive disorder anxiety. Worry can be at the basis of a lot of anxieties, most particularly generalized anxiety, which is this ongoing, pervasive, ill at ease, all the way from being unsettled to panicky because of what if worries. What if this, what if that, what if this, what if that? And you can concoct so many of those things that they can just fuel a generalized state of anxiety. So they're not really the same thing. They are related. And to the degree that worry enters in, for example, if you have a panic attack, that's a heavy surge of anxiety. Now you worry about having another panic attack. What if it happens again? Where will it happen again? What was that all about? Am I going crazy? Am I losing my mind? What happened to me? I used to be so easy gone. So the worry is this ongoing state of mind to interpret what happened to you. Anxiety is one thing. It happened. It surged. Your body reacted. But now you interpret it, and much of the time you interpret it with worry or a fear. Let's say you're afraid of flying. You have a certain reaction because you are feeling out of control on a plane. But the worry is, what if I do something really foolish looking in my anxious state? What if I press the flight attendant's call button 9 times in the first 5 minutes? What if I panic so badly that I vomit? So the worry is what fuels, in that case, the anxiety. But the anxiety, by and large, is a broader clinical term. Worry typically is a state of mind. And much of the time, worry is not related to reality. If it were, then you could make plans to solve the worry. You're planning a wedding, and you're worried about a whole bunch of things going right. Probably should rephrase that, going wrong. You can plan to mitigate the risk of those things going wrong. So you have a plan for your worry. But if a worry doesn't come with a plan, what if my baby is born unhealthy? And you're doing all the things you can to make it more likely your baby will be born healthy, but you can't guarantee your baby will not be born with some kind of complication. You can't guarantee that. So that worry is unanswered. You can't plan. So worry, in fact, is a state of mind that can really, really, really rattle your peace. Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. Dr. Ray Guarendi, delighted to have you with me. Good Lord permitting. Talk to you tomorrow. Walk with God, and that should help some of your worry. Won't take it all away. We're not perfect this side in peace, but it'll take a lot of it.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.